Just switch the hat, switch the hat, get
It's
ready for the game.
hat appropriate, yeah.
That's how we roll around here. Welcome back to episode number 2. This week 2 for us already
Yep.
in Kings baseball, man. Really excited about it. So we've got some stuff to cover. Miami off to a good start, and we'll see where this leads us. Vish, before we get going, by the way, we were gonna try to have Nick Soto on, but his wife is pregnant, by the way. So God knows if they're gonna have a baby soon or not. So if he doesn't come on today, he'll come on next week. He already gave us his blessing. A good friend of mine, Nick Soto, the strength and conditioning coordinator for Miami Hurricanes baseball. But we still might have a surprise guest on the show, and it might be a pretty cool one. We'll see. We're trying to confirm it now. But Vish, as I try to get this going, give me your assessment of what you saw week 1, opening week. Miami take on Niagara, and by the way, swept them.
Swept them, wasn't competitive at all, which is what you want to see. Pretty big contrast to last year and how the season started. I would say my overall takeaway is the team looked sharp. Clean in the field, good at bats. They looked ready to play. Again, big contrast from last year, and big contrast from Niagara, who did not look ready to play at all. A lot of fielding blunders for Niagara, and
not used to, right? They haven't been.
We did get reinforced in the rules that if you pop the ball up and it just lands it as a hit, so if no one touches it, so because that happened multiple times. And
more than I can count. I lost count.
So some of those case doubles were a little misleading, but no, I thought overall the approach was good. The at bats were good. We actually talked about this quite a bit. Last year and into the preview this year about, it's not just, the getting on base. Obviously, all that stuff's important, on base percentage and all of that. But, when you don't get on base, are you're out productive? Are you, working counts, getting the pitcher's pitch count up? All of that happened. The at bats, the approach was good. Very few unproductive outs. We're able to get guys in their scoring position and drive them in. We did bunt quite a bit, so. That might be a back as a thing, but it was. But again, those are productive outs too when you execute it. So I think just overall, much more.
Who was bunting, right? Like, that's the thing, right? You saw a lot of Mikey Torres bunting.
He led off. He led off the last game. So it wasn't just him though. Tanner Smith bunted a couple of times, even though he was raking. So I think it's situational as much as anything else. I think, assessing the team and their struggles to bring guys home. If you lead off inning with a double, that player should score, right? And I think, making sure that they secure that was probably something that played into that. And their overall plate approach, not a lot. I think there were 2 home runs this weekend, so it wasn't like 34 runs, I believe, on 2 home runs, or 35 runs maybe. It's a lot of really good baseball. It is, and that's what I'm getting at. The quality at bats, got guys around the bases, drove them in, and that's the stuff that'll sustain, because the home runs are, they're fickle. When you rely on them, you get to the wrong park, or you get to the wind blowing in, and then the next thing you know, you can't score. So this type of play is much more sustainable. And then on the mound, everything looked good. Everyone was sharp. A couple of guys came a little nervous with controlling a couple of batters to start their outings, but other than that, once they settled it, everything was smooth there as well. We obviously know we now are the proud owners of the ACC Pitcher of the Week as well.
How about that, everybody?
Yeah.
Not only is he the ACC Pitcher of the Week, but we've had 64 analytics on the show before. I can't remember the dude's name, but great people. They do some really funky stuff when it comes to analytics, and a lot of stuff actually makes a lot more sense than you think. They have him ranked as the number 1 pitcher in Division I after week 1. So pretty cool. And look, there's a lot of interesting pitchers on here, like guys that you probably won't recognize. Some you might. Jack Klein from Little Rock, Matt Adams. From, I think it looks like a Northern Iowa team. I'm not sure. Julius Sanchez from Illinois. Ian Umlant from Oregon. Colton Book from a team that has a bird on it. I have no idea. Garrett Ahern from Grand Canyon, Luke Nichols, not the quarter, not Luke
I was about to say, man, that he gets around.
Miami,
He's on campus here too. What do you know?
and Alex Sparks. Like so, some guys on this on you might recognize some of the names on that list from like the Oregons and maybe the Illinois and whatnot. But I the point I'm trying to make is that man, there's good pitching everywhere, right? And we found a guy like Griffin Hughes, and we're able to bring him over to Miami, and I think that was an amazing get for the Hurricanes. He's our number 2 guy right now, our Saturday night starter, and I think it's exciting to see what he did. So we're hoping that it continues, that the trend continues, but obviously our top 3 guys look sharp, as you mentioned, Vish.
As to the bullpen.
So as well. A lot of young guys there, but mixed in with a couple of veterans, right? So it was nice to see Reese Lumpkin got some time. Carson Fisher got some time. Will Smith, friend of the program, got some time on the mound. Mix it with some of the young guys too, with Tate Darius and Lachi, Lance Calera, and then of course
my guy Jackson Cleveland,
superstar Jackson Cleveland. So
came in on Saturday and pitched the 9th.
Yeah, he did. So
I watched the most of the 3 games. I left the 3rd game in the middle to go watch the women's basketball game. But with Kristen Cleveland, Jackson Cleveland's mom. So that was interesting when he came. A lot of nerves when he came in. When he came in for that 9th inning appearance. Had a couple of walks and settled in and 2 Ks and got out of it pretty easily after that. Actually, similar to what Brian Walters did. Sunday, nerves in the first inning, kind of couldn't find the zone once he settled in. Cruise control. Jackson Cleveland kind of did the same thing Saturday night. Everyone looked good. And I will say both of those instances I'm talking about where, look, it's the first game of the year and, these kids are amped up. So some of the pitchers especially will, have trouble throwing strikes because they're just overthrowing. It's hard to keep your pitching is weird, man. You don't want to throw it as hard as you can. And so, but when you have that much adrenaline, it's hard to keep it in check. So, but both times Las Gutierrez came out and talked to him, both those pitchers, and immediately, he calmed them down. They immediately started throwing strikes, hitting their spots, and that's something that happened a lot last year. So that was good to see as well. I mean, there weren't very many bumps this weekend, but when the bumps happened, we rode them out pretty smoothly. So
right. Well, speaking of home runs, like you mentioned, we only had 2 home runs this weekend. One by freshman shortstop Brandon Degody, which was nice to see. A local product who was committed to Ohio State and flipped to Miami right at the last moment.
Yeah, out of Belen, I believe.
Yes, out of Belen, correct. Belen product. His brother was a big time prospect too, coming out, plays in the pros now. So hit a nice home run yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. But
his first hit of his career, he crushed it.
But our boy who was on the show last weekend, Todd Hudson, hit an Oppo Taco on was it Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening. Hit an Oppo Taco home run, which was his first as a Miami Hurricane, first of the season, first home run for the Canes this season. So really excited because he was hitting the cover off the ball most of the weekend, and he was just sitting right on it, and so you got to see it. Him hitting in the 8th hole. I kind of like it because
there's good, and this is what Kyle Smith. This is some pretty good spot on analysis. Look, Niagara is not good, and obviously when they're booting the ball over the field, dropping pop ups, it makes life a lot easier. But I thought the lineup was pretty balanced. There's definitely some pop in the middle, although we didn't hit a lot of home runs. Tanner Smith hit 2 off the top of the wall, so
the kid that we didn't expect to do that.
And he, the wind. I think Sunday started to blow out a little bit more, but the first 2 days was gusting in. So, there were definitely the wind caught a couple of those and held them in. But yeah, the lineup was balanced. There was no, in contrast to the last even couple of years, even the team that was ranked 9th and lost the home regional. You'd have that top of the lineup, and then, all right, we got to wait another inning or 2 for them to come back around because no one else is going to, it was Dom, it was Yo-Yo, it was those kids that you're like, all right, we got 4 or 5 guys at the top here. When Blake Sear was here, too, and we're like, all right, that part of the lineup is deadly. And then after that, it's like, okay, we got to wait for the lineup to turn over. This case, I felt against Niagara, so we don't get too carried away. I thought 1 to 9, they were all threats to get on base, to hit, to not strike out in bad situations, which is again, something that happened last year. The worst thing you do is strike out. Like if you put the ball in play, especially against a team like Niagara, good things might happen. So I was pleased with the balance. You mentioned, Todd's home run. His at bats and his approach at the plate was really strong, and that was a payoff of that. You mentioned opposite way with it, just wait, saw the pitch, waited on it, didn't try to pull it, just went with it and knocked it out of the park. And again, it was good hitting. Very impressed with the hitting approach this week.
Yeah, Bobby Marsh going 4 for 4 in the first game,
Yep.
and looking really good as well. Derek Williams had a couple hits throughout the series also. The one I was most impressed with, to be quite honest with you, was, and we spoke about this a little bit, right, was how concerned we were going to be if Mikey Torres was going to be able to handle the bat. And again, it's Niagara. I know it. I get it. But we also spoke about how important it was for them to do exactly what they did against Niagara so they can build that confidence and see if it kind of, builds off of that and keeps going. So I think it was important for them to be able to be successful, not to struggle so much at the plate and on the field, and if you were a pitcher on the mound, right? So I think Mikey Torres did a hell of a job hitting both in the 9-hole and in the leadoff spot yesterday, right? Being able to get on base, get base hits, but also move guys over with some bunting. His speed is going to be a problem. I think his speed speeds everything else up. So when you lay down even a sacrifice bunt, you have to make a great throw, right? You have to field the ball properly. If not, he's going to beat it out. So those are things that you have to kind of look into when you have Mikey Torres in the lineup. The guy that's competing with him in center field, Fabio Peralta, did a great job also when he came in. So I think that you've got some depth there in the outfield with him. And with guys like, Derek Williams and Bobby Marsh, who was DHing most of the weekend. So, but I was really excited with what I saw from Mikey Torres. I think that there's an opportunity for him to develop there. He's just got to build that confidence, right? Because when it comes to Florida, and they're throwing out these guys, all 3 of their guys that probably can get drafted in the first round on the mound, and he struggles a little bit. Does his confidence go down, or does he have short-term memory and gets back at the plate and executes the next time around, right? Because he's going to have problems. Everybody's going to struggle against some good teams. You got to be able to kind of have that short-term memory and keep going. So I think it's important for him to get going now.
Yeah, and it appears we have some good front end pitching though, so that takes some pressure off the batters as well. You're not having to score like last year. I mean, we had maybe a couple week Gage, and then sometimes Rafe, sometimes not Rafe, depending on if he had it that day, and just trying to piece it together and maybe hold them under like 6-7 runs. You come into a game as a lineup knowing we kind of got to get to 10 today. That puts a lot of pressure on them, and you actually end up scoring less. Knowing that we have pitching kind of every day now on a weekend series does take some pressure off of them as well. And like you said, Jazz, there are options on the bench too, which means the bane of my existence last year with the righty lefty matching up. Like you can do that this year and actually bring in equivalent bats. Because last year he was doing a lot of that when I'm like, okay, but we just went from a guy batting 375 to a guy batting 118. Like I get it, a righty lefty's not worth 200 plus points on the batting average. But this year I think there's a lot more, like you said, kind of even-ish players, so you can kind of make those moves depending on game. And you mentioned Torres is an excellent fielder. So, if you're down, maybe you pinch hit for him late in the game, but if you're up, you don't, because he's handling the bat well enough to stay out there, right? So, again, all the signs are good off of 3 games, but it's just 3 games. Let's not, even I'm not going this far, my friend. CCH, I knew he'd be fired up. Apparently, we have the juice times 3, but let's not get too carried away here off of 3 games against Niagara, but I think the bounce of lineup is good. Happy with the pitching and the overall approach of the team. And I would say, and obviously, Jazz, you'll be out there this weekend, so will I. For some of this, I can't make the Friday game. I'm gonna try and make most of the rest of them. All those hoops on campus too, so I'm double duty. But I'd say the vibes around the team are a lot better than they were last year. Last year was weird, right? Gino retired. It was a weird search. JD came in, pieced together what he could, and there were a lot of kids that probably stayed because they didn't have options because it happened kind of later in the summer. Then they probably didn't want to be here anymore. So I think just that the team seems a lot more together, and I think it's just a much more well-rounded ball club than last year. You're muted. You're still muted. I don't know if you can't hear me, but
Got it. Sorry about that. Yeah, as you mentioned, the pitching was good. Nick Roberts is the guy that I don't want to say I necessarily worry about him. I worry about the fact that night in and night out we're gonna have to play some solid defense with him, because he does pitch to contact. Even with how good his stuff is, right? He's 93 to 95 on the bump. He's got some good off-speed stuff, but he still pitches to contact a little too much for my liking. But he can be effective that way. We've seen him be effective. If he can be effective and we can play some defense behind him, I think we'll be fine. Because he's still got good enough stuff where he can put some guys away, which is good. But he has to do it more consistently. He can't rely so much on putting the bat on the ball, because the truth is, right, he throws hard. The ball goes out harder and he gets hit harder. So you gotta be able to get people out with making them swing and miss a little bit more than he has now. So I think that if he continues just to locate his pitches a little bit better, continue to pitch better and grow and progress, I think he's going to be really good. Will he stay as our Friday night guy? Potentially. I think that he's got an opportunity to do that. But the kid, obviously, that looked electric, that looked awesome, was Griffin Hughes. Just from the start, the kid was just mowing guys down, left and right. He looked confident on the mound. He's not a guy that's going to, pitch. The pitch clock is not going to be a problem for him. He's just going to get up there. He's going to go right at guys, right? And you saw him. He was sitting 92 to 94. He can even get it up to 95 if you ask him to a little bit. But, he's got good off-speed stuff. He goes right after guys. But he also knows how to pitch a little bit, right? He's got that bulldog mentality. And he showed it. He showed it 10 strikeouts in 5 innings. And an opportunity for him to really showcase his talent. He was, as you mentioned, ACC Pitcher of the Week, and I think he's got an opportunity to really come in and be one of the best pitchers in the ACC. And then you've got on the back end, you've got Brian Walters, who probably has the best stuff on the team, but also can put you away with 6 sliders that he throws. You saw him 10 strikeouts over 5 innings as well. First 2 batters he faced looked okay. And then he just settled in and it was lights out after that. So, you mentioned it, right? Those top 3 guys. I'm going to be interested to see who throws on tomorrow against FAU, if it's Alex Giroux or if it's Robbie Evans or someone else. I'm not sure. I think Robbie Evans might still be injured. Not too sure. But if it's Alex Giroux, he's not a guy that throws excessively hard. So is he a guy that can get guys out with his off speed to really pitch to the black and mix and match his pitches a little bit. So be interesting to see with our guy there. I know we've got some depth. As you saw also Vish this weekend with some of the young guys that were pitching and some of the older guys like Carson Fisher and Will Smith and Reese Lumpkin. Some of those guys came in and looked good. Some of the younger guys came in and looked real good also. I figured out what the Siskar problem was. Did you hear about it? I don't know if you heard about it. So Siskar had and he's a kid that a lot of fans and a lot of people were excited to see pitch because he threw really hard. I think he's like a 95 guy, 93 to 95. Young kid who's very electric, throws the ball really well. I think everybody was excited to see him pitch. He had some dizzy spells in the fall and in the spring that were causing him to be removed from the game a couple of times, or he had to sit down and relax. I don't know if it's vertigo or what it was, but apparently that's why they pulled him. They wanted to be precautious about it, and they pulled him. It wasn't because it wasn't any arm issues or anything like that. He was a little dizzy, and so they pulled him just to make sure he was okay. So I think they're gonna have to monitor that and see if that's gonna play into to how much time he gets on the mound. But I think he's one of those guys that can come in and be one of our most important arms on the mound. And then you saw some young guys, man, like Tate Darius. I really like Tate's arm. I think it's live. I think it's his motions. Everything is exciting to me from him. You've got some other guys there on the mound that are going to work their way in and do some things. So a lot of it's fun to say that a lot of look last year, right? This is what happened. What happened last year? Even in the first series, right? You removed the starting pitcher and the wheels fell off. Even I don't even remember who we played in the first series, but the wheels fell off and we let some guys score some runs because the young guys just couldn't get done. This you went from one guy to the next and then just kept going and just kept going. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of everyone. I mean, it's too early to tell because it's Niagara, and we're gonna have to. I think one of the Laz, Gutierrez, obviously JD's involved as well, is gonna be to figure out how to use these guys and when. There's a lot of options here, so it's really like, all right, we know Jackson Cleveland's the closer, but we talked to us a little bit on the preview, like what's the bridge look like? Because he threw a bunch of arms this weekend, everything worked.
Right.
That's obviously partially due to Niagara being the opponent. So yeah, who do we start tomorrow? That player is likely a potential when you start getting the later parts of the season. Long reliever type, whoever they have, and then if we let's say we get to the 5th, 6th inning, all right, who's going to get you the 7th and 8th so that you can get to Cleveland in the 9th, right? I think that is still TBD. There's a lot of options, but none of it's proven. So not at this level. Even the guys that transferred in, so you don't know until you're on the mound in Gainesville and it's 4-3 and you're coming in. All right, we need you to get these 3 outs.
Right.
then that's what we find out. You don't really find out, in a 10-run game against Niagara.
No, but it was good to see the fact that they didn't come in and the wheels didn't fall off, right? Like they just kept going. And in the first couple of series last year, they had some issues, right? They had some issues walking some guys and giving up some runs. They were as dominant as the starters were for the most part, which was nice to see. I know, again, like you mentioned, it's not an amazing or fantastic Niagara team, although they made the postseason, last year.
Last year, yeah.
It's still good to see that they were unfazed by the bright lights. Their first time out there on the mound against whoever it is, they were to go out there and they went out there and they executed, and that's all you can ask for. So I'm excited to see.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I tweeted about this too. Like it was
Long Island. There we go, Long Island. That's who it was.
Yeah, we lost a game to them. Yeah. And I ate a bagel milkshake. That was not a great weekend. Yeah, no, I mean we struggle with some of these teams last year. So all things considered, you have to asterisk everything because it's Niagara, but
right.
This couldn't have really gone better for an opening weekend. Everyone that played contributed. Even the ones that maybe didn't hit as well as we'd like, still like in spots, moved runners over, still got RBIs with sacrifices, that kind of thing. So, again, for first series, first go around, it's hard to imagine it going better than it did. Other than, I guess, Jazz, we've gone 25 minutes into the show, have not mentioned Daniel Cuvée.
I know. Well,
he was okay. He was batting around 300 the first couple of games. I would say his outs were bad outs. Like he looked kind of
he struck out like 3 times.
Yeah, he struck out a bit, and those weren't great at bats. And he fouled a ball off his foot, I guess, in Saturday's game, so he sat out.
Right.
Sunday, and yeah, the Jazz and I are we cover several teams with this program, so they said it was precautionary. I want to see him back out on the field before I determine if that's the case or if it's something worse. But
Yeah,
but he didn't play Sunday. It said precautionary, but we've had out with upper extremity. He'll be back in a week. Don't worry about it, and never see the kid again. So I want to see him back out there. But yeah, that allowed, as we mentioned, Gotti to step up and got the start on Sunday and homered. So a little bit more depth this year.
But by process of elimination, Gotti is already better than Cuvée this year. So
more home runs. So.
Oh man,
I expect Cuvée to be back soon. Just these injuries some injuries can linger, so something to keep an eye on. But yeah, I think he's got to adjust to being the guy, right? And I think obviously he was our best hitter by a mile last year, and so especially towards the end of the year, people start going to pitch around you, and the way that Marsh was knocking everyone in, they're eventually not going to be able to pitch around you, right? And I think you just got to trust it. If they pitch around you, take your walks. I think he chased a little bit, just again trying to do a little bit too much.
Gonzalez much. He looked really good.
He looked really good too. Yeah, yeah. He had a good weekend too. It's kind of interesting. I think he got pulled early on Sunday. I was like, man, it's like a 4-run game in the third inning, and JD's decided it's over, which he was right, of course, but it's a little bit early to start. It's like they somehow rally here.
I know.
Like we're gonna want Dorian back out on the field, and we can't do that. So, so yeah, we'll see. But I do think, overall, can't really complain about anything.
No, I think we'll see some guys get some time on Tuesday tomorrow as they play FAU, but I think. We've got to win these midweek games. It's important that we win those midweek games.
All these things matter, right? You try to build your resume up to, again, there's layers, right?
Right.
Step 1, you put together a resume good enough to make regionals. Step 2, host regionals. Step 3, host supers, right? I mean, that's the goal for the season. So that all starts to fall apart when you drop these midweek games.
Gotta win the midweek games. It's more important than people think. So
we've had teams absolutely miss the tournament because they lost some midweek games. Like, you have got to take care of those.
We went under 500 in midweek games last season, right?
We went under 500 in every way possible, my friend.
Well, imagine
in the ACC tournament, we went 2-1 at the ACC tournament. But everywhere else, we struggled.
Well, imagine winning. More of those midweek games, chances are we get into the tournament, right? So it's
if we had done better, there's a possibility, because we did actually have some good series wins last year. Beat North Carolina, beat Virginia. So that's why you got to round your resume out, and these are games that are infinitely winnable. So if you go in there and you focus and you play well, you're going to win,
right?
And so it's like once we're a couple of weeks away from playing at Florida. So that's when it starts getting harder. You're naturally going to lose some games. You don't want to look back and say, man, I wish we'd focus more on that FAU game in February. So
agreed.
Yeah, this is where you just take care of that business.
Let's see what happens. We'll be back to talk some more Kings baseball next week after Princeton. But if you guys want to hang out, we'll be out there. I'm going to try to be out there Friday. I probably won't be out there for both games on Saturday because, again, I have to do something else in my life as well, aside from just sit there and watch baseball. I could. Trust me, I could. But I don't know if that's going to bode well for my everyday life. So I'll try. Friday and Saturday. I'll be there.
Just to recap, Friday at 7, Saturday at 2, and then the second game's at 5:30, and then Sunday at 1. Our 4 games, and like you said, tomorrow at FAU 6:30 in Boca.
And what time? 6:30.
Yep.
Shoot, I might be down there. So.
Maybe head out to Boca and
maybe.
You might see Jazz Santana there.
But if not, come hang out with us this weekend at the
Yeah,
Light.
yeah, I'll definitely be out there for parts of. I'll be out there every day. I don't. The men play at 6 on Saturday, and the women play at noon on Sunday. So, I'd and that's senior day for the women. So I might do a little bit of double duty there on those days for parts of that. But definitely, I'll be at the first baseball game on Saturday.
Work. Sounds like a plan. All right, my peoples. We will see you guys next week then. Adios.